All right. Good afternoon. Good Sunday afternoon, Americans, patriots. Thank you. Thank you for spending time here with James Detroit. Just got a chance to go spend some time for the first time ever in the Amish community of Shipshewana, Indiana. And I think I'm going to go back. I know what you're thinking. You're more than 50 years old living this close to Shipshewana and you've never been there? I know. I said the same thing to myself when I got there. I'm like, how come I haven't been here before? It's a market society, though. I look at the livestock auctions. I look at, obviously, the flea markets. And the best chicken I've ever eaten. The best roast beef. Well, almost the best roast beef. I think the best roast beef's cooked in this house, but switching gears slightly. Way to go, Michigan. It's a good basketball team. It really is. To beat Ohio State the way they did today at Ohio State, first time since 2014, that's a big win. Ohio State's a good program. That's a good basketball team. They got a good coach. They got a great program, great university. That's a good win. Good win. And Michigan basketball, so much of it is predicated, the success, so much of it is predicated on the defensive end. Very impressive to watch that. Now, I'm reading the business and economy section of the Epoch Times. I'll just hold it up for you there. Stephen Moore is an economics journalist, author, and columnist. He is the chief economist for the Institute for Economic Freedom and Opportunity. Mini bio, I guess. His article I'm going to read, it's not that long. Sometimes you think this is political. It's not. This happens to be, it is commentary, it is an opinion, but it happens to be a commentary about basically when the money goes, everything goes. One of my favorite sayings from another author that I enjoy reading, Bill Bonner. I've shared him with you here many times. Let's break this down. Is there even one half-sane Democrat that will stand up to denounce the fiscal atrocity of President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion spending bill? That's a question. Is there not one single patriotic Democrat in the entire country who will speak out? The silence is deafening. The House Democrats are now rallying behind a budget resolution that calls for a $6.1 trillion single-year budget. When I first came to Washington in 1985, President Ronald Reagan passed the first $1 trillion budget bill. We were all aghast. Now, we are spending 6 times that amount and no one blinks an eye. Even worse, the Biden budget plan would authorize just under $4 trillion of borrowing in one single year. I'm going to read that again just to make sure you did not miss it because you have already fallen asleep. The Biden budget plan would authorize just under $4 trillion of borrowing in one single year. That is more debt than was allowed, adjusting for inflation, to finance the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Great Depression, World War I, and World War II, combined. The Democrats plan to use reconciliation instructions, which allow the Senate to pass spending and tax bills with only 51 votes in the Senate. They don't need a single Republican vote. Call it the unity budget, Senator Bernie Sanders said. Democrats have earned the right to bankrupt the country because Republicans do it. Okay, I gotta just take a time out. Okay. Will somebody stand up? Will someone please? Back to the article. The bill has very little to do with coronavirus relief. Pelosi has inserted the $15 minimum wage, a $400 billion blue state bailout to fund leaky government pension programs in states such as California and Illinois. And she's also included $130 billion for school funding, even though schools have been closed for 10 months. There is also a $400 per week bonus unemployment benefit that will pay most unemployed workers more money to stay home than go back to work. And of course, billions for the New York subway, paid for by people from, well, say living in Indiana or Nebraska. One reason for the mad rush is that the Democrats fear the crisis is disappearing right before their eyes. We are told this is urgent to stave off an economic crisis. But wait, Congress had already authorized $3.7 trillion in spending in 5 previous bills this past year. The House Budget Republicans reported that there is still more than $1 trillion of unspent money from those bills. Whatever happened to eating your dinner before you get your dessert? One reason for the mad rush is that Democrats fear the crisis is disappearing right before our eyes. Coronavirus cases and deaths have plunged by more than 1/3 in the last 3 weeks, and the vaccine is getting injected into 1 million arms a day thanks to the former President Donald Trump's Operation Warp Speed program. As for the economy, the Wall Street Journal reported that the housing market is red hot, with prices up 12% over last year. The manufacturing index has hit a 5-year high. Unemployment claims are falling, and there are 6.5 million jobs in open jobs in America. 6.5 million open jobs in America. The stock market has surged to all-time new highs, and in the last quarter, private sector GDP was up a bullish 4.3%. Does that sound like a crisis? Perhaps in blue state America, where governors such as Andrew Cuomo of New York and J.B. Pritzker of Illinois have foolishly shuttered their businesses and schools. But the solution to getting back to the rapid growth of the first 3 Trump years is to open up the state economies and speed up vaccine distributions. Those solutions cost almost nothing. Instead, Biden insists that the lesson he learned from the failed $830 billion shovel-ready bill back in 2009 was, quote, "We spent too little," end quote. So he's doubling down. Don't worry about the children and the grandchildren who will be saddled with the Chinese and Saudi debt repayment. The New Republic recently advised Biden to spend like crazy. And this bill has very little to do with coronavirus relief. So crazy is what we get. Crazy like driving 80 miles an hour down the highway, drunk and wearing a blindfold. So I repeat, will some Democrats somewhere please stand up and tell the drunk with power Democrats to stop? I am terrified the answer is no. I break down that article with a few additional points. So the schools need $130 billion for funding as a bailout, and yet they've been closed for 10 months. That's a reduction in overall cost, both for heating, electricity. That is a reduction in your janitorial services, in actual supplies having been spent. Now you're going to say, oh, but James, they had to move other monies over to still feed the people through the lunch programs. Yeah. The education system should have received a windfall. They did receive a windfall, in a budgetary windfall in this past year. Just like the teachers received a windfall, a raise, because they didn't have wear and tear on their vehicle, less oil changes, less money in gas to have to drive back and forth. Yes, the teachers had to improvise. But like every teacher who teaches the same class the second or third year in a row, they get in a groove. And by online teaching those lessons, they were in a groove very quickly. As much as they want to complain, they're not standing up to their own union. They're not standing up to the blue state governors and saying, hey, we need to get back. Because those choices that the educators have made as a whole, they are killing our young people. Suicides are up, overdoses are up. We are losing an entire generation. Now let's talk about the people that work for the government. It is the largest employer, I believe, now in the United States, is federal and state government and local jobs. They didn't have to drive to work either. Most of them have worked from home. They've realized a windfall raise during this time. They've never missed a single paycheck. And both of these groups of people that I've just mentioned still make under the threshold, still got an additional, oh, we're sorry, we got to send you out a stimulus check because you've been negatively impacted by the virus. No, actually, those two groups of people have been positively impacted by the virus, and yet they still continue to get more. Of course, they're going to want the status quo. Of course, they're going to want Mr. President Joe Biden and the rest of the crony capitalization to continue down this road. Will any of this group of people stand up and say, no, this isn't smart? Because when the money goes, everything goes. These dollar bills that they keep printing that you end up getting somewhere down the line, not to quote a song, but I guess I have to, somewhere down the line, you end up getting this piece of paper, this very colorful piece of paper. And only because you and the guy at the store, or you and the woman at the restaurant believes that this is an exchange for goods and services. That's it. The full faith of the United States government. There's not much faith anymore. This craziness is causing a lack of faith on a degree we've never seen. The article next to this one happens to be the Keystone XL pipeline cancellation impacts more than jobs. But it also talks about the 11,000 jobs just on the KXL. And then also talks about, what about the 50,000 jobs that are building the lines off the mainland towards the houses and cities and towns? Excuse me. Well, the numbers are even bigger than that, because once you factor in those, and then you factor in this cascading effect, it's somewhere south or north of 1 million jobs. You add in the $15 minimum wage that was part of that insertion into this latest budget debacle. And the Congressional Budget Office, which is bipartisan, or nonpartisan, I should say, that's suggesting somewhere between 2.5 and 5 million jobs lost. And who does it hurt the most? It hurts the small businesses. It hurts the communities of color. It hurts the middle and low income areas of our country. I'm just one voice. And I'm just a regular guy living in Michigan, looking at this thinking, is everybody nuts? Am I the only person that can see this clearly? I hope you share this with somebody. I hope you do your own research. You know, this urgent need to get this bill passed, this budget passed, because this crisis, this COVID-19, remember, it's a pathogen. It is legitimate. It was released from a lab. SARS-CoV-1 was released from a lab created by humans. SARS-CoV-2, same thing. It's 99.99% non-deadly. Across the board, that's what the law of large numbers tells us. If you have not already, please read the Great Barrington Declaration. And the excerpt I would take out of that, to summarize, herd immunity is not a strategy. It's scientific fact. These doctors have went to great lengths and jeopardized, in this cancer culture, jeopardized a lot to publish that. Please read it. I am James Detroit. Thank you for joining me. And for now, I'm out.